Hey everyone, welcome to another Crusade raid video. And in this one, we're going to talk about the final team that I came up with the units that I have available. And I mentioned that specifically because unfortunately I don't have the best team for this fight because I'm missing Mel, and that is sort of my own blunder. I didn't realize I didn't have her. I actually originally thought I had Mel on my account, but turns out I think it's actually on my alt account that has Mel. I haven't logged onto that account for months because I just don't have time to play two accounts, or the desire really to play two accounts anymore for Haze Reverb. So I'll just be focusing on my main. But I incorrectly, I basically misremembered that I actually pulled it on the other account, and therefore when I was using the customized banner, I unfortunately didn't check. I should have checked. That was my own fault. But I selected Monica as one of them because I was always intending to pull Monica on the standard banner because I didn't have enough of the elite tickets for her when she was on the normal banner. But at the same time, I should have picked Mel as the second unit, but I kind of brain farted and ended up picking a PvP unit that I was like, oh, if I get this one as dupes, I don't mind that because I couldn't think of anyone else I really wanted to pull for. So I decided to go for dupe as the second unit, but yeah, unfortunately, that meant that I don't have Mel for this boss, and that's why I am unable to get any higher than this score. And so that is one of the findings that I discovered while doing my testing, and also just observing what other people are using in their comps. Now, another thing I also tested is Hikari, who is the other anti-armour DPS that is a new one that is not listed on the JP tier list. Now, on the JP tier list, they do rank Mel as the best, so this does confirm that they were correct with that. And Festive Dolores was second, and Xiaomeng third. Now, where does Hikari fit into all this? Now, Hikari's actual burst damage is actually very poor, right? And I think it's because a lot of her damage is coming from her dots. But the dots on this boss just do basically no damage. It's very, very minimal. Her actual anti-armor damage is worse than Xiaomeng, but it's probably enough to actually kill the boss if you're running a normal setup, right? With two tanks and a Miso healing the tanks. Obviously, you have to remember they're spread out, so one tank in each corner. But the turn order is number 1 Miso, 2 is the first tank, and then 3 is the third tank. The second tank. In that sort of normal team where you're trying to outlast the boss, Hikari should be able to kill the boss. I haven't tested it personally. I just can't be bothered to be honest. But that one should work. But in a burst comp like this, where I'm trying to kill the boss in 2 turns, she doesn't really work. Doesn't do enough damage. It might have been situationally good if Festive Dolores did as much damage as Belina does, right? Because Belina can do very large chunks of damage, and sometimes you have to downgrade her or give her weaker cores or something like that to not one-shot the boss. It's depending on the total health of the boss. In some of those cases, maybe the down rank gets the boss down to something like here, 3/4, and you just need a sub DPS that doesn't do too much but can do enough damage to drop the boss down. In that case, you could make use of something like a Hikari or a Xiaomeng because they're the lowest of the anti-armor DPS. But unfortunately, Dolores doesn't do that much damage. I mean, she does plenty of damage, but not enough to compare it to something like a Belina. So yeah, that is what I discovered with Hikari. I did skill her up. Unfortunately, I kind of regret it now. I feel like it was a bit of a waste to skill her up. But yeah, I tested it so that you don't have to. Now for the final comp, I ended up using a single DPS composition. I did test dual DPS with Xiaomeng as the second DPS, and unfortunately, Xiaomeng just doesn't do enough damage, right? It's surprising because back in the day, when Haze Reverb first came out and we had our first Crusade boss, Xiaomeng did so much damage to the armor bosses back then. and it's kind of unreal to like get to fast forward almost a year, I believe. Like Festive Dolores does probably 2 to 3 times more damage than a Xiaomeng. So that is really unfortunate. Basically, she got power crept out, and I really dislike when games do that. Like, I think if you invested in a Xiaomeng back then, like you really should be able to still compete with the more recent anti-armour DPS in bosses like this. But the difference is actually quite significant. So I think the most optimal setup would be either a single Mel DPS or a duo DPS with Mel and Festive Dolores, most likely. Right, that is my guess. But yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't test that out. Now, with the dual DPS setup, one interesting thing was that it actually came very close to beating this team. Like, it was like the margin is not that big, but Festive Dolores single DPS ended up being slightly better. Alright, so now with all that out of the way, let's discuss my team and like the turn orders and how it works, right? Because this is actually a more advanced team. I don't really recommend to like try to make teams like this. But yeah, this is I'll talk through like how I worked it out, right, as well. So first off, I have Monica here to buff Aevati, and then that will splash across the 4 tiles, right? Because that's Monica's range. Now Monica will sap some of the health, right? It's not super important for these units, but for Aevati it is, because Aevati, you want to trigger her EX, which is based off her being below 50%, right? Now Monica's health decrease is 30%, and therefore with 2 activations, it will reduce Aevati below 50%, right? It doesn't matter what her health is, you can run her naked, no cause, and that will still work. But this comp requires 3 turns to kill the boss, right? I need Dolores to hit 3 times. The first one will chunk it down to 120 odd thousand. The second hit blasts it down to roughly 80k remaining, and then you do the overkill on the third hit. But because obviously with Monica's buff, 2 activations triggers the EX. That would mean that on the second hit I would overkill, and it would be a very weak overkill, right? It's not like what I'm aiming for. So to counteract this, I'm running Franca here to heal for 1 turn, right? Because you can see here I'm taunting with Nastya because she's an auto taunt, and I put Franca right next to her. Now there's 2 reasons for this. One, I only want Franca to heal for 1 turn, right? Because otherwise, she would indefinitely heal these 3, and Aevati would never trigger her EX. So that part's obvious, right? So I only need 1 heal to get Aevati to a turn 3 EX. Then I want to trigger all the EXs that trigger based off having 2 allies dead. So killing Franca off is half of the problem, right? Solved. Then obviously I need my taunting unit to die as well on this second hit, because if you see the turn orders here, right? All of the supports move first, and then Festive Dolores is the first DPS to move, right? Which means that on the 3rd round, the boss actually doesn't get to attack. So I don't really care about having no tank on that round. Therefore, I can't sacrifice whoever my auto taunt is, right? Obviously, the auto taunt needs to survive the 1st round, because I don't want to trigger the 2 death EXs on that round. I want to trigger them all on the 3rd round. So that's how I manipulated the team to allow me to have all those triggers on the 3rd round. Because obviously, the 3rd round is when I'm going for the big overkill damage. I'm trying to blast as much crit damage as I can onto my Dolores to do a big hit when the boss is at 80k. And yeah, that's how it works, right? And then everyone else is pretty standard. Like Zhao Wu buffs Ney, and Ney buffs herself, and both of them have the same targeting pattern, which is this cross shape, and that will of course splash onto Dolores. And then Maybelle is the best single target buffer. Then we have Illya here. I guess one thing worth mentioning with Illya, I ended up fully scaling her to rank 10. This cost me all the books I had been saving up for Transcendent books. And yeah, I just decided that I think long term, for at least for like a Crusade player like I am, this is going to be a more worthwhile investment. Um, Especially because we're now hitting crit damage cap, right? And I'll show you that when we look at the actual turns, right? So yeah, all these buffs go out. One heal on Aevati. It doesn't really matter for these because even with 3 turns of buffs, they won't actually die. Because Maybelle is going to give the shield and the heal over time to Dolores, so she's never in danger of dying. Even though both Monica and Maybelle, remove HP, but that's fine. Yeah, that pretty much is the team. So let's. I'll play out the battle, and I'm going to explain something towards the end of the 3 rounds. I'm going to turn down the sound a little bit. Hopefully that comes out because some of these are very loud. But we're gonna see all the buffs go out. Dolores does the first hit, goes down to 120 odd K. Sorry, 1.2 mil. Sorry. And then yeah, now we get the buff from Illya, right? I didn't get it on the first turn. This is actually kind of important because I needed the turn order anyway. But this does let me get it down, the second attack down to roughly 80k. And I think if I put her moving before Dolores giving her the buff, it would be too much, right? Now you can see both of the units, the sacrifice units have died. Now we're going into round 3. So now all the EXs are going to trigger, right? That's why all the sounds are like really loud at the moment. Those are all the EXs triggering. And I'm going to pause right here because now all of my buffs are on Dolores. Now you can see here Dolores is actually 100% over crit cap. So crit cap is 1000, I've confirmed that. The 100% is coming from 2 Illya buffs. And the reason that happens is because at least I found out while doing this, is that this actually can stack, right? Especially because the duration is 18 turns and you have 2 units that have died. So when you activate the Illya on the end of the first round, 1 unit will die, so that means that the durations can overlap, right? And then on the final round, there'll be 2 units dead. That means it's only 8 turns being taken up before Dolores gets to move. So that's why it's 1,100, not 1,050%, right? Then we have all the EXs, and that gets her the crit cap. And I think you do need everything to push it this high. I have tried swapping different units around, but this is the best combination for this particular boss that I found. This means that there's actually a lot of crit damage buffs I'm not using. So there's Fleur, and there's also Swimsuit Dorothy, who are both really good crit damage buffers, but there's just no room, and I'm already overcapped anyway. So that's that. And then we do our big damage at the end. And then I'll show you the score here. So this is the score, 2.2 mil, plus a bit of extra change. And if you multiply that by 3, you'll get my final score, which is on the scoreboard. And the damage is consistent. I don't think there's any variation at all. But if any, it's very slight, maybe 10 damage, plus or minus, that kind of thing, right? It's very small. But that's how I got my score. And you can see May is at least one of the people that are running Mel as their DPS, and that allows him to do much higher damage, of course. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have Mel to try to run a comp, right? That competes with that. So I just have to settle with this. So yeah, that is it for this video. I will have some more details, or at least have a summary of some of the findings and also the team comp in the description. I wanted to just remind people of that because I feel I have had people ask certain questions which were actually answered in my description. So just keep in mind that every video I do, I always put some sort of summary in the description for you to read if you don't want to rewatch the whole video. Obviously, the video does explain it in more detail, but I will have things like the team comp and stuff like that and also replacement units in the description where relevant, right? So obviously in this type of video, the replacements are not relevant because like there's not really replacements to like copy this damage. But for like the free to play comps, like, that sort of thing, that I will usually put some sort of like listing of, or at least like mentions the units that you can replace other units with, right? Or whatever you can add to improve your damage, right? All right, so anyway, that is it. There's enough rambling for this video. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.